The woman saw the change and relaxed her grip on the rubber teat. This time the parkie stayed in. A cruel smile spread across her face. There we go. That's one way to quiet down a cranky baby. Jemima mumbled, "I'm not a baby," around the pacifier. But the woman just laughed as she opened up the folded diaper and set it on a seat next to her. Not a baby? Maybe not a regular baby. But you're about as mature as one. So why not look and act the part? Jemima frantically shook her head. But the woman didn't stop. Or even care. She gently guided Jemima onto a bed and pushed her down onto her back. Now lay right there for Nanny while I get you nice and clean. Jemima cringed as she saw her grab a package of baby wipes and come towards her. She wanted to make a run for it. But her body didn't respond. The wipes were cold as they were used to clean up where the wet towel had done so earlier. The woman kept talking as she worked. You may look older, but deep down you're just a sniveling little rugrat that still sucks on her parkie and needs her didies changed. Jemima felt her eyes watering and started to swing her arms around. The balloon still attached to her wrist made quiet bopping sounds as it hit the wall of the cramped trailer. But nothing she did stopped the diaper from being put on. She felt it slide under her butt. She looked up in time to see a cloud of baby powder poofed onto her. No. Stop please. No diaper. She mumbled from behind her pacifier. Oh hush baby. Enjoy this, it's not like it's going to be the last time you're going to have your diaper changed. Jemima stopped struggling and looked at the woman in shock. It was enough of a break to let her get one side taped on tight. Oh, did baby think she would be allowed to grow up soon? Jemima started to struggle again, but the other side was quickly taped as well. There we go, a nice dry diaper. Time for your pants and we can let you go home. Sit up baby. Jemima quietly sat up, surprised that she could move again. But when she tried to stand she found she couldn't. She wiped the tears from her eyes and looked down at the bundle of white plastic now surrounding her girly parts. She wanted to rip it off, but for some reason, she couldn't bring herself to do it. She looked up to see a pair of pink pants being held up in front of her. After a few seconds, she realized they were actually bib overalls. The pants were set next to her on the bed and Jemima was told to take her shirt off. Jemima tried not to, but it was as if her body wasn't under her control. She reached down, grabbed the shirt, and pulled it off over her head. She dropped it on the floor and was given another to put on in its place. She pulled it over her head and was surprised to see it had a flap on it. Lay down baby, let Nanny help you. Again her body did as instructed. She heard several loud snaps as the flap was snapped to the front of the shirt. She spread her legs and looked down at the woman as she grabbed the pants and started sliding her legs into them. Now relax honey. We're almost down here. Jemima wanted to kick her legs. But instead they went limp and the pants were slid easily up her legs and onto her waist. Her fear was slowly being replaced by the humiliation of being dressed like a toddler in a diaper. Please. Stop. I don't want this. I'm sorry. But her pleas were ignored. She was told to sit up, and the bib straps were adjusted and snapped closed over her shirt. There we go. All done. Can you stand for Nanny? Jemima blushed again as she stood. The bulk of the diaper felt odd between her legs. She took a few steps towards the door and stopped. She looked down at herself. And then up at the balloon still floating above her. She started to shake her head wildly back and forth. Oh, what's the matter baby? Scared of going out into the big world and leaking? Don't worry, you'll be fine for a few hours. When Jemima started to whine behind the pacifier, Nanny turned around and started searching for something. I know what you want. She stopped searching and stood up. Here we go, baby probably wants her bottle. No. Jemima drew it out into a whine. She started to talk so fast the woman couldn't understand her. How about you pull that parkie out for a few minutes and you tell me quietly what's wrong? Jemima was surprised when she opened her mouth and it fell out freely. She rubbed the spit from her lips and started calmly talking to her. I'm sorry. I don't want this. Please. I'll be good, just let me go. I don't want to be turned into a baby. Oh, but don't worry. You won't be turned into a baby. Jemima visibly relaxed. You'll just act like one. Jemima tensed up again. She almost felt like throwing up. No. Please. Give me another chance. I'll do anything. Oh, anything, I see. What would a little baby like you have to offer? Jemima blushed again. Every time the woman called her a baby, the word felt like it pushed her back. No, not back, down. Like it made her feel shorter every time she heard it. Please. I don't want to be stuck in diapers. I want to be normal. I just want to leave okay. Like nothing happened. Baby, Jemima felt that weird feeling again. I think it's time you put that parkie back in. And we rejoined your friend. Jemima tried to fight it. But her right hand picked up the hanging pacifier and slipped it into her mouth. She started sucking on it right away. The woman walked in front of her and opened the door. Then grabbed Jemima's left hand and pulled her out and into the sunlight. Tanya had been about to open the door. It seemed like it was taking too long to just change a pair of wet pants for dry ones. She heard the door start to open and stepped back down onto the ground. Tanya casually looked at her watch, then back up to see Jemima emerge behind the lady. She stared wide-eyed at what Jemima was wearing. The woman just smiled as she handed a bag containing Jemima's wet pants and shirt from earlier. She looked so cute in the pants that I decided to change her shirt to match. Isn't she a little cutie pie? Tanya looked at her friend and could see the fear in her eyes. Yeah. She sure is. The lady pinched Jemima's checks and made funny faces at her. She's such a cute baby, isn't she? Tanya felt uncomfortable. She could see Jemima twitch as baby was uttered. Yes, she is. The woman stopped and looked Tanya right in the eyes. She's what? Tanya felt her gaze bore into her. She's a cute baby. The woman smiled and went back to teasing the poor girl. Yes, she is, isn't she? She stood up and stepped away from Jemima, gently pushing her towards Tanya. Well, here you go. All nice and clean. Better get her home before she makes an even bigger mess. Thanks. CYA later. Tanya felt Jemima grab her hand and start to pull her as fast as she could away from the crazy woman and her trailer. This time the crowd seemed to push back as they tried to go through. Tanya could feel herself step on others' feet as Jemima just pushed her way through and kept dragging her along behind. Tanya was having a hard time and started to struggle because Jemima wasn't slowing down. Tanya pulled back and spoke up. Slow down, Jemima. I need a breather. But Jemima acted like she didn't hear her. She pulled Tanya along as fast as her diaper allowed her to walk. She tried to ignore the stares of strangers as she ran past. She imagined everyone could see her diaper. The crowd started to thin and she could see the end of the rows of tents and games. As she got closer, she felt her fear start to wane. Tanya finally pulled her hand free and stopped. Jemima, I've got to sit for a sec. Jemima frantically looked around, then at her friend. Please, just a little further. But Tanya didn't listen. She had found a low bench and sat down. Geez, relax, baby. It's not that much further. Just give me a sec for my legs. Tanya, no. Jemima shook her head slowly. Then pointed towards the open space past the tents. Just another 50 yards. Come on. Tanya motioned for Jemima to get closer to her. Why don't we pull that pacifier out so you can talk clearer? She reached out and pulled it free with a pop. Jemima's face took on a look of horror. She grabbed it and put it right back in. She sucked on it rapidly for a few seconds, then looked at Tanya. Tanya, I can't stop sucking on it. That bitch, oh. She stopped talking as a weird feeling overcame her. It felt like it eased and she tried again. That by dash, but she stopped again. Tanya went from confused to concerned. Relax. Remember what got us into this mess. Don't say things like that here. Jemima wasn't listening anymore. The weird feeling was growing more intense. She looked towards her friend and tried to talk. But her tongue suddenly felt numb. She started frantically pumping her arms up and down. She could see Tanya looking at her, but it wasn't enough. Jemima suddenly wanted to be held. She took a step and got closer. Another step and the weird feeling started leaving her. She stood still as she felt her body returning to normal. At last, all that was left was a tingle around where the diaper surrounded her. She smiled as that finally faded away, and almost lunged towards Tanya, landing awkwardly in her lap. Jemima! What's this all about? I thought you wanted to leave. Jemima didn't answer, she just hugged her. Jemima? Are you okay? Did something else happen? A muffled fart was her answer. Tanya gently grabbed her friend's head and moved it so she could look Jemima in the eyes. She watched as her face started to turn red. She seemed to be straining for some reason. Another louder fart erupted from Jemima and Tanya realized what was going on. No. Don't do it. She pulled Jemima towards her in a tight hug and started frantically whispering in her ear. Jemima, you're not a baby. She felt Jemima's body tighten as she said that. Don't act like one. Only babies do that. Again she felt the tightness. But lighter this time. Tanya felt the diaper growing warmer. Stop, Jemima. Jemima tried telling Tanya it was okay. But her tongue still wouldn't work right. Instead, she went in for another hug. She rubbed up against Tanya and it made her feel better. She started rocking slowly in her arms. Tanya felt fear bubbling up in her again. She returned the hug. Then started slowly pushing Jemima back onto her own feet. It was hard. She didn't want to let go. But after several seconds she finally had her standing. Jemima, stand normal. Straighten your legs. How are you going to walk like that? Jemima didn't answer, she was busy watching a brightly colored roller coaster car sweep past. It really looked interesting to her. She followed it with her eyes, then her head as it moved out of view. She turned her body around to keep watching when another odd feeling overtook her. Tanya had stood behind her and was slinging both of their purses over her shoulder when she heard another fart. She looked towards Jemima in time to see the seat of her diaper start to bulge outward. Oh, Jemima. No. But Jemima no longer cared. She was enjoying the feeling of filling her pants. She knew it was wrong, that she was a big girl. But it felt so good. She closed her eyes and kept pushing. As she did, the idea it was wrong slowly faded from her mind. Tanya sat back down and put her head in her hands. She tried to stop. But she could feel tears start running down her face. She looked up and saw Jemima now sitting happily in her own mess playing with some dirt on the ground. Oh, Jemima. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stopped us. I'm sorry. Jemima heard Tanya talking and happily crawled towards her. She giggled as she crawled up between her legs and started wetly slapping on Tanya's belly. Then she saw the tethered balloon still floating from her wrist. She started pumping her hand up and down, laughing as it was bounced around. Tanya looked at the balloon and in a rage, she grabbed at it. The loop that had been so tight in the past easily opened and released. Tanya let go and watched as it climbed away into the sky, her mouth agape. She couldn't believe what had happened. Then before she could close her mouth, a shadow fell over her and she felt something slipped into it. Her head snapped forwards and she saw the same woman that had changed Jemima before standing in front of them with a smile. "Don't worry, that's just to keep you from making a scene. I don't need anyone screaming right now." She sat down next to Tanya and crossed her legs. She started carefully pulling strands of hair out of Jemima's face. Then wiped some drool from her chin. "Such a cutie, isn't she?" I knew underneath all that anger that she was just a big baby. Tanya couldn't talk, she found she couldn't even move. She frantically tried to get the attention of passers-by, but they didn't seem to care. "Funny, isn't it? I've been doing this for centuries, and it's always the same. Out in public people feel so secure, like they can do anything. Not realizing that all those other people are too absorbed in their own lives to notice anything." Tanya looked at her, the anger was clear on her face. "Oh. Don't you look so precious? Better be careful." She motions towards the right of Tanya. "There's room for one more in the stroller." Tanya looked and felt a surge of adrenaline course through her body as she saw the large two-baby stroller sitting there. Odd, isn't it? Something so peaceful. Designed to protect our most precious gifts. And now you're terrified of it. The lady grabbed Jemima's hand and gently pulled her to her feet. Time for Nanny to take little Jemima back for a clean diaper and a nap. Tanya tried to move to grab her, but she couldn't do anything but move her head. She watched as Jemima waddled towards the stroller. The woman actually holding her arms up to help her walk. When they reached it, Jemima was lifted up and strapped in. The woman slowly rolled it past Tanya, still stuck on the bench. "Wave bye-bye, Jemima." Tanya cringed as Jemima lazily waved towards her. She wanted to stop her. She wanted to grab Jemima and run. But she remained rooted to the bench. The woman slowly rolled Jemima away. But she stopped and turned back to Tanya, a sly smile on her face. "Room for one more."